You
don't
know,
actually
here's the
listen?
thing about me. I always tell the truth.
Look, I used to sell software to mothers of children so they can learn how to read, and I'd say to them, look, if you don't buy my software, they're going to live in a gutter when they get old.
If you don't buy my software, they're going to live in a gutter when they get old.
Pigs get slaughtered. You're dead to me when you say no to my deal. You're dead. You're gone. I don't even know who you are. You're a vapor.
So a lot of breaking news with this FTX scandal. One thing I want to go through is Kevin O'Leary. Who is Kevin O'Leary? Where did this guy come from? And how is it possible a guy like Kevin O'Leary insults overweight women, attacks people, threatens their lives on national TV, threatening people's lives, harassing and attacking women, totally degrading women, and somehow this guy is the face of crypto. So in today's video, I want to play some clips. I want to talk about a few past stories about Kevin O'Leary that somehow the media completely forgot about. All the bad investments, all of the lawsuits, wife possibly involved in a DUI where somebody was killed. I mean, it's pretty bad. And to think about how rude and disrespectful this dude is to women, overweight women, and maybe even women of color. A lot of people should be asking these questions.
Is it possible that larger-sized women don't care about fashion as much? That's why the market doesn't service them.
My.
To hell on earth. It's a hobby that eventually should be taken behind the barn and shot. I hate it. Somebody has to go in the water from the seals to sacrifice their lives so that the others can live eating the sardines. It's the one that's starving the most that goes in first, followed by maybe a few thousand more. So, B, do you know who you are in this story? You're the first seal that goes in the water.
This is published by Canada's National Observer. It says the real and shocking story of Kevin O'Leary's business career. Is Kevin O'Leary a good or bad businessman? Buried in the back pages of the financial press last October was a story about the sale of a mutual fund company, O'Leary's Funds. The Canoe Financial, an investment firm run by former Dragon's Den cast member and entrepreneur Brett Wilson. O'Leary had launched his fund with great fanfare back in 2008, introducing them to viewers on his business news network BNN show, Squeeze Play. Wearing a naughty navy blue suit and matching azure tie, O'Leary resembled a proud father with a new infant as he explained to the co-host Amanda Lang how his fund was designed to produce yields on a monthly basis.
If you actually started to take any market share from the established sock makers, they could crush you like the vampire cockroach you are in 2 seconds.
You gotta pay daddy, he declared. Because my wife cost a fortune, my kids cost a fortune, I need dough, and I need dough every month. You gotta pay daddy number one. In those days, O'Leary's star was ascending. He was one of those so-called dragons on Dragon's Den, which became a bona fide Canadian hit. The following year, he and Lang moved their daily business show over to CBC, renamed the Lang and O'Leary Exchange. O'Leary's popularity and persona as a business guru soon drove investors to his mutual fund, with O'Leary's fund roaring to as much as $1.5 billion in assets and probably more. O'Leary boasted of being an investment whiz with the access to movers and shakers in the business and political worlds. Those ties give him unique insider knowledge.
I don't pick places where there are thousands of dead and rotting corpses. That's what the beverage industry is.
The reality was quite different. O'Leary was not even licensed to manage or invest other people's money. Instead, he hired Connor O'Brien, a former Wall Street investment banker, to run O'Leary's funds. Moreover, by 2012, the funds were in trouble, falling to $1 billion in assets by the end of the year. This past fall, when he finally sold his company to Canoe, the funds were down $800 million in assets. This was due to redemptions, investors pulling their money out because of the fund's performance. The majority of the funds performed poorly for an extended period of time, and the majority of Bay Street brokers refused to sell any new funds, says Mark McQueen, CEO of Wellington Financial LP, a $900 million Bay Street financial firm and one of O'Leary's longtime critics. It's not personal. The industry lives and dies on performance.
Now, there's a little bit of a risk there. If you walk out of here and a bus runs you over, you're going to be sparkling on the pavement with that belt. That's the problem.
Yet the demise of O'Leary's funds is, in fact, just the latest in a series of failures in Kevin O'Leary's business career. Disaster at Mattel. O'Leary is unquestionably a media star. He has written best-selling books, been a fixture on the latest 4 television shows, including the current ABC hit program Shark Tank, revels in making outrageous statements, and crafted an image as the mean dragon, able to reduce investors to tears without put-downs like "This is the worst idea I've ever heard of in my life. It's so bad."
Uncle Kevin Bobblehead is saying, Uncle Kevin wants to put a special bracelet on your ankle. Every time you mention mall, 200 volts, whammo.
By 1983, O'Leary saw the potential in the emerging software and personal computer industry. He formed Softkey Software Products, Inc. Softkey moved to Boston and focused on booming fields of educational software. By 1993, it was trading on the NASDAQ and had revenues of $110 million and losses of $57 million. The company grew by making strings of acquisitions. Softkey's most prominent takeover was San Francisco-based The Learning Company, TLC. Prior to the sale, TLC hired the Center for Financial Research and Analysis, CFRA, a forensic accounting firm, to examine its stature of financials.
I would spray you down with water, and every time you say I don't know, I'd hit you with an electric cattle prod.
CFRA alleged that Softkey may have overstated its earnings by bundling various general and administrative costs into write-offs. CFRA was also unhappy with Softkey's decision to fire its auditor, Arthur Anderson, after the accounting firm found definances in the company's internal controls. CFRA noted that Softkey's audit committee holds several questionable members, including the CEO, as well as an outside member associated with two public companies charged with financial improprieties, and another member who is a paid consultant to the company.
Pigs get slaughtered. We're focused on the money. You've come to the wrong place, my friend. I'm here to make money.
Let him finish, Kev. Our biggest goal is to break bad habits around the world. And Mr. Wonderful, I can't work with you. It's the person. I feel like I would take an offer from anybody besides Mr. Wonderful.
Yet Softkey's acquisition of TLC went through, and Softkey adopted the TLC name. By 1996, TLC had 3,000 employees and was the biggest educational software company in the world. It continued to grow via acquisitions, driving revenues up to $800 million. But SEC filing shows that the TLC suffered a net loss of $376 million in 1996, $495 million in 1997, and $105 million in 1998. Moreover, TLC's accumulated deficit topped $1.1 billion by the end of 1998.
Celebrity businessman and TV personality Kevin O'Leary is usually the one putting others in the hot seat. But today, appearing via Zoom from Los Angeles in a Perry Sound courtroom, it was Kevin O'Leary's turn as a witness for the defense at the trial for his wife, Linda O'Leary. O'Leary testified that the couple had driven by boat to a dinner party at around 7 p.m. on the night of August 24, 2019. And when asked if Linda was drinking at the party, O'Leary said she might have been, but could not recall seeing her drinking. They were on the way back to the family cottage after 11 p.m., he says, traveling between 14 and 20 nautical miles per hour. Quote, "We went right into it. It was a huge surprise. I didn't see it until right before we hit it." Kevin O'Leary says they drove back to the dock of his Lake Joseph cottage and only learned at around 2 a.m. from a police officer that one person had been killed and another seriously injured. 64-year-old Gary Poltash of Florida died that night. 48-year-old Susanna Brito of Uxbridge died in hospital days later. O'Leary also testified he did not remember hearing that his wife had given a breath sample to police, but recalled she had blown an alert.
That same year, toy giant Metal Inc. made a takeover bid for TLC without doing any proper due diligence. Desperate to reverse a steep slide in the company's stock price, Jill Barad seized on educational software as a driver of future growth. The takeover shocked many, largely because TLC was seen, according to software industry analyst Sean McGrone, as a well-known house of cards that was burdened with tried brands, not helped by the fact that Kevin O'Leary had slashed R&D from 24 down to 11% of expenditures. There was a lot of TLC inventory out there that was not moving very well, McGrone says. They pumped up the sale by repacking and distributing the convenience stores and drugstores.
No. Well, if you actually don't listen to what people are trying to tell you,
but the numbers don't lie.
I don't think you listen. I think you just cut people off rudely.
You know, here's the thing about me. I always tell the truth. You haven't sold any more than 30,000.
I don't think you tell the truth.
You're starting
at all.
to get on my nerves. Listen.
You know what, Kevin? I think you're a liar.
By probing you and sticking the needle in, you have not given me a chance to put any dollars in there. You know what I want to do? I want to bring truth between the brothers because I'm on a mission.
You don't know truth at all, Kevin.
now.
You know what? Don't sit here and lecture us about truth when you know nothing about truth. Your reputation is rude, and arrogant. You don't listen to anybody.
You come into my kitchen, buddy, you got to take the heat.
This is not your kitchen.
Yes,
it's
it
a
is.
TV show.
This is my money. You want to get to this side of the stage?
We can do whatever we want.
You
You have any right to be rude and arrogant. You have no right. You just don't
Randy,
listen.
I asked you
if you don't like
15
board
times,
games,
show me how I can make
don't
money,
get
and you
in.
told me the game's great because kids love it.
Indeed, TLC was later acquired in shareholder lawsuits and by Metal executives of stuffing the channels, shipping products at the end of the quarter, and reducing its revenues. Even though much of the merchandise would be returned, stuffing the channels was part of the business back then. In the end, Metal purchased TLC for about $4 billion in the spring of 1999. O'Leary took over as president of Metal's new TLC digital division.
If there's ever a place I could be that I'm not going to get in trouble, it's going to be at FTX. If there's ever a place I could be that I'm not going to get in trouble, it's going to be at FTX.
Weeks after the sale, CFRA produced a critical report on Metal, claiming TLC was already experiencing collapsing revenues, a surge in receivables, and deterioration of operating cash flows. In the third quarter of 1999, Metal expected profits of $50 million from TLC division. Instead, it was a loss of $105 million. The next quarter, losses rose to $206 million, which wiped out more than $2 billion in shareholders' value in one day, as the company's share price slid off from nearly $17 to $11.69.
I'm sitting on the sofa alone. I'm looking for some action. I call your service. I'm guaranteed no action.
Oh, you know what? You've got it all wrong.
This is crazy.
You're looking at it all the wrong way. It's
Really?
It's not a dating service. We're not going to provide you with action.
Why not? Well, why would I use your service?
In short, O'Leary had sold Metal a turkey. One investor says O'Leary's cashed in Metal's shares just before the losses were announced when the stock was at its peak, pocketing almost $6 million. In November of 1999, O'Leary was fired 6 months into a 3-year contract. 4 months later, Mattel's CEO, Jill Broad, was forced out too. There is nothing I can say to gloss over how devastating the learning company's results have been to Mattel's overall performance, Broad said as she went out the door.
Pigs get slaughtered first. Why are you being so greedy?
We're not being greedy. What
do you think? I'm an idiot? I'm going to give you a $10 million
I mean, if you don't,
valuation?
no, I totally understand. If you don't
Now
see,
you're pissing me off. Look, why don't you stop this crap and deal with reality?
Mattel hired Bernard Stoller, a video game executive, to see if he could salvage TLC. It was an absolute disaster, he said. In 2000, Mattel handed over its multi-billion-dollar acquisition to another firm for a mere $27 million and a share of its future profits. Mattel's purchases of TLC was later labeled by Business Week magazine as one of the worst deals of all time. Shareholders launched a class action lawsuit naming O'Leary as a defendant, accusing him of insider trading and being part of a scheme to obscure TLC's financial state. While O'Leary denied the allegations, in 2003, Mattel settled the lawsuit for $122 million. Considered a mega settlement at the time, O'Leary has blamed Mattel's management for the problems with the TLC division, not his own involvement. While O'Leary's actions cost Mattel's investors hundreds of millions, he netted $11.2 million between his severance package and the sale of his Mattel stocks.
Listen, Edwin, if you actually started to take any market share from the established sock makers, they could crush you like the vampire cockroach you are.
After getting canned by Mattel, Kevin O'Leary's business career sputtered and meandered. In 2003, O'Leary invested in a self-storage company called Storage Now Holding Inc. Wheeler had found a perfect piece of land in Toronto. O'Leary put in about $500 million and ended up with almost 13% of the company. In the summer of 2003, the Toronto land was purchased, and for a cost of $5.2 million, Storage Now's first self-storage facility was built and opened in the spring of 2004. But the relationship among the three men deteriorated. Wheeler oversaw building the Toronto facility and finding plots of land to consult similar warehouses. Eventually, he negotiated a deal with Statue and O'Leary to divide up the company's eventual profits. In a $10 million wrongful dismissal lawsuit, Wheeler contended that Statue and O'Leary arbitrarily altered the agreed-upon compensation deal, reducing his cut and the profit sustainability.
There's an island right off the coast of South Africa where the largest population of sardines exists. Seals love sardines. Hundreds of thousands of them sit on an island, just bare rock, nothing to eat. They look at the sardines. After about 7 days, they start to starve. But they know if they go in the water, the great white sharks will eat them alive.
A further deal related to profits derived from the Toronto facility was finalized in 2004, but in April of 2005, Wheeler claimed that he met with O'Leary, who told him that this agreement was too rich to Wheeler and what had been agreed upon was simply no longer available. According to Wheeler's lawsuit, O'Leary told Wheeler his pay and compensation arrangements would be cut back. The following month, Wheeler was terminated. Wheeler believes that once O'Leary and Stachel realized how profitable Storage Now was going to be, they pushed him out of the business.
But how do I make money off depressed people?
But how do I make money off depressed people?
In a defensive statement, despite such characterizations, Wheeler went on to develop a series of other self-storage units across Canada with another company using his original concept and became a millionaire on paper. O'Leary and his partners were soon outmaneuvered by their competitors. A competing company in storage, Self Storage Inc., blew by them, growing so rapidly they gobbed up Storage Now in 2007. Wow. There were other miscues for O'Leary too in 2004. He was appointed to the Board of Environmental Management Solutions Inc., later called In Global Inc., an Ontario waste management firm. The stock price slid close to $4 to $3.50 during O'Leary's term of almost 5 years as a director. Jeez, oh, Pete.
I don't pick places where there are thousands of dead and rotting corpses. You are. You've got a real business, but you're a pig. You're greedy. You're not leaving anything for me to wet my beak with.
O'Leary was made for television, having soaked up the lessons learned from Don Cherry years earlier. He was the sort of person who would bring a box of dog biscuits onto the set and howl if he thought a certain stock was a dog. In the early years, Bay Street began peddling income trust to investors, but Al Rosen, Mark Rosen, experts on investment products, concluded income trust shares characterized of Ponzi schemes, with many destined to fail. In 2005, they produced a report saying 50 of the top income trusts were overvalued by almost 30%. Yet Al Rosen recalls O'Leary's championing income trust on his TV show. Rosen says he went on BNN and argued with O'Leary about the subject. He's an ignorant man, says Rosen, one of Canada's leading forensic accountants. He was trying to kill us every time. We would see each other and almost spit on each other. In 2006, O'Leary was cast on Dragon Dens for its first season, taking on the role as a resident asshole. He was the sort of person when an investor busts into tears after being criticized by the Dragons would say, "Money doesn't care. Your tears don't add any value."
Part of what I have to do every day is to try and find opportunities where I put money in harm's way and I get a return. You're dead to me when you say no to my deal. You're dead. You're gone. I don't even know who you are. You're vapor. You're pigs. Starving the most that goes in first, followed by maybe a few thousand more. The ones that sacrificed their lives did it for a purpose. So the DNA of the ones that lived can go on. So B, do you know who you are in this story? You're the first seal that goes in the water. There's only one answer to this. I have to hire you both so I can fire you. This is so horrible. How do you think this has any chance of surviving and work? I hate this so much, it's incredible. It's one of the worst ideas I've ever seen. I'm out. Look, there's always that classic scene in a movie. Grandma's maybe 105. She's on the bed. She's looking at her family. They've all loved her. They're having that moment. They've had a great life together. And she says, pull the cord. I'm ready. I don't want you to pursue the path to hell on earth. It's a hobby that eventually should be taken behind the barn and shot. I hate it. Somebody has to go in the water from the seals to sacrifice their lives so that the others can live eating the sardines. It's the one that's starving the most that goes in first, followed by maybe a few thousand more. The ones that sacrificed their lives did it for a purpose, so the DNA of the ones that lived can go on. So B, do you know who you are in this story? You're the first seal that goes in the water. You know, the problem with the enviro movement, which is part of your problem, is nobody cares. Everybody wants to hug a beaver, love a whale. But when we get into what really motivates everybody at the end of the day, and this is a sad reality, but you got to deal with it, is money. You know, you have to pay a price for going to zero. You realize that, right?
I did pay a price for that.
What, you lost your wife?
And a lot of money.
That's more important. No, that's really an issue. It is. It's business. It's business. Opportunity knocked. No one was home. Turn around. Get out of here. It says you're a nothing burger in this market. You should just throw knives at each other. Here's how I think of my money. Soldiers. I send them out to war every day. I want them to take prisoners and come home. Your army, every soldier dies that you send out every day. When you have no soldiers, you're wiped out. That's the game of life.
O'Leary, on the other hand, is absolutely an arch narcissist, noted Mitzberg. I don't know how he manages his companies, but his stereotype is dysfunctional. According to this article, every one of O'Leary's success stories is not what it's cracked up to be. Wendy Johnson and Claudia Harvey intended a utility glove for women and needed $50,000 when they went on the show in 2009 for their company, Digital Apparel Inc. On air, O'Leary agreed to give the money in return for 3% of royalties. After the show, they eventually gave him 10% of the company, but the $50,000 never monetized. When he said he'd like to have a 10% for $50,000, I thought it would have been a cash injection. I thought that the money was in the bank for us, said Harvey in an interview in 2012. When it came down to it, that wasn't the case. Instead, O'Leary offered them a line of credit at an interest rate higher than what the banks offered. He never actually gave us any money, said Harvey at the time.
Good, pick up the phone and start dialing.
All right, guys, so stay tuned. I couldn't fit it all into this one video. I mean, it's kind of crazy how rude this guy has been to women, how disrespectful he's been to women. I just don't know how you can be that rude and that disrespectful to women on national TV versus some of the things that you hear other people say that they're held to the fire for. Some things just aren't adding up here, guys. So this is just part one. We're going to dive into the BitBoy Kevin O'Leary feud that's going on Twitter right now. Things are getting wild, guys. But drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think of Kevin O'Leary. I personally will never touch any crypto asset that the guy is invested in. And I think he definitely needs to leave the crypto industry because you can't be this type of wolf in sheep's clothing and try to hurt the industry this bad and be working behind doors with regulators and Sam Bankman-Fried and then come back on TV and try to tell us that Sam is a good guy, that you would support and invest in him again. Just crazy, 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 man. I don't know why he's trying to cover his tracks that bad, but this lawsuit's going to get very, very interesting, and I'm part of it. Love you guys. Peace.